Give me 14 minutes and I'll teach you the 3-step system I use to make my song sound professional every time. This is really easy to do, so even if you're a beginner at music production, I guarantee you'll understand and massively improve your music after this video. And in the end, I'll also prove it works by implementing it on the track, and you'll hear it instantly turn into professional quality. And lastly, if you like my teaching style and found this helpful, then feel free to check out my paid 7-day course where I teach things exactly like this. But anyways, let's get started. First, as someone who's made music for 14 years, I've truly realized that the most important part of your entire song is the cake, also called sound selection. This is the most boring part, but it's super important you learn this. I like to think of a song as a chocolate cake. This cake is the sounds and instruments you pick. On top of it is a little cream called mixing, and mastering is that cherry on top. So why the frick would you spend tons of time trying to improve the cream and cherry when 80% of your track has to do with the chocolate cake? You'll get like 5, 6, 7 times more bang for your buck if you just focus on the cake. No secret or advanced mixing technique is going to save your abomination of a cake if it looks like this. So how do you get better at sound selection? The first tip is you just need to go through or create a lot of freaking sounds. This is probably the simplest and most important tip you'll get in this video, but think about it. If you want a great lead and you look through 5 sim sounds versus looking through over 100 sounds, odds are the lead you find after going through 100 is going to sound way better. And tip number 2 is just to make sure you try sounds in context with your whole track. When you look through, let's say 100 kicks, throw in maybe the top 5 kicks you like the most into your project and try those 5 in context with your mix, and you'll hear much better if it actually fits with your track. And tip number 3 is deeply analyze what you're inspired by. Let's say, for example, you love future bass, then look up your favorite artists in that genre and actively listen what type of instruments and sounds they're actually using. Do they use small short kicks with a lot of sub bass, or is it big fat kicks with a lot of mids in it? What kind of synths are they using? Is it more plucky or more open synths? A lot of reverb, or is it very dry, etc. Then go through or create a lot of sounds just like that and try the best ones in context with your full track. And tip number 4 is make sure to save the best sounds you find so you don't have to do this every time, and you'll save a lot of time. And don't worry, I'll show you more exactly how I find great sounds at the end of this video. And the second step in the system is 3D positioning. But here's the key. 3D positioning shouldn't be a completely separate step from sound selection. It's something you should keep in mind as you're selecting samples and instruments. So what do I mean by that? Imagine my voice in your mind as an instrument in this 3D room. The more high-end frequencies I add to my voice, the higher I'll be in this room. So the height, also called frequency spectrum, is how high or low sounds are in this room. And then we got panning, also called stereo spectrum, is how wide sounds are or how much they're panned to the left, right, or center. And depth, also called volume, is how forward or backward sounds sit in this room. Basically, it's like playing Bob the Builder, but you build a song instead. And once you start putting this into practice with every sound you choose, making professional sounding tracks becomes really easy, because every sound will already have its own space before you even started mixing the track. And don't worry if this seems a little bit abstract right now, I'll show you how to implement it in a minute. The third and final sauce in this system is keys and octaves. It's crucial, but almost no one talks about this, even though it can dramatically improve the quality of your entire track with just a few quick tweaks. So first, the reason you may want to change the key of your track is because the quality of your sub bass depends on your key. If your sub is too low, it loses power and might not even be audible on some audio systems. If it's too high, it also loses power. So in this cheat sheet right here, you'll see the sweet spot for the sub bass. And you can download this cheat sheet for free down below. And since this requires you to change the key of the entire track, there are moments when, for example, your vocalist can't sing in a certain register, or your lead starts sounding really bad if you move the key of the track too far. So basically the goal is to get as close to the sweet spot as possible without ruining other elements. And if you can't reach the sweet spot, there are some other sub-bass fixes to make up for it. For example, one, you could add another octave of your sub-bass to fill below or above where your sub-bass would be missing frequencies. And the second thing you can do is to saturate the sub-bass to fill up the higher end of the frequency spectrum that sub-bass may be missing. And that's all you need to know about the sub-bass. And then we have octaves. Moving an instrument up or down an octave can not only dramatically improve its sound by itself, but also separate it in the 3D space we talked about earlier. Because by moving it an octave, we also move the frequency content of the sound. And if you found this video helpful, it would mean a lot if you could just take a second to like or even subscribe. Cheers! Now that you understand the entire 3-step system, let's put it into practice and you'll see how massive of a difference it makes. So the track we're using is a kind of Kaigo versus synthwave-ish track I quickly put together as an example. But remember, this system works for any genre of music. And this obviously sounds like trash. And if you were to place this track in the 3D space, it would look something like this. It's just a mess. So to fix this track, the first thing we should do is just look to see if the sub-bass is in the sweet spot. It's from C sharp to D sharp, which is not the optimal place. So let's move it down 2 semitones to get it as close to the sweet spot as possible. So it goes from this to this. This sounds a lot better, so let's move the entire song down 2 semitones, and now the track sounds like this. And our 3D room is changing as well. Now let's fix the bass. Right now, if you listen to the bass in context with the chords, you can hear how they are both fighting for the same space. A solution to this may be to just turn it down 1 octave. And boom, the difference is massive. The bass is now super easy to hear compared to before. Something I noticed now that is kind of obvious is that the sub-bass is barely audible. And that's because it's so low in volume, so we need to just bring it forward by pumping that volume knob up. The room is starting to take shape, but there's a lot more we can do. And the next thing is the chords. As you can see, I got 4 patterns of chords. The first one is an electric piano, then it's a regular piano, and then it's some high-end and low-end synthwave chords. And I think the synthwave chords sound good. So we don't have to change those. But these pianos, they sound way too thin and weak. So a way to fill them up is just by adding another octave to them. I'll just copy and paste the bass line to add below the chords of this first piano. And we should probably move this B note down 1 octave so it's not too close to the other chords. And it sounds so much fuller. Let's try add another octave. But this obviously starts sounding bad, so that's too much. Let's go to the other electric piano. And this is way too thin as well, so let's add another octave. And boom, it sounds way bigger. Let's go to the other realistic piano. The problem is that it sounds way too chill. Since this is the drop, we need to find a new realistic piano that is more energetic and takes up more space in the frequency spectrum. But first, let's just add another octave. And now I'll just look through a bunch of piano presets, and since I already know which pianos generally sound good, I won't have to look through that many. But if you do this, make sure you take your time. So eventually I found this one. Let's hear it in context, and I'm going to mute the lead because it sounds like trash. And it started to sound good, like actually starting to sound really good. And the next thing I'm noticing is the hi-hat. So remember what I said about 3D positioning? Does this sound like it's in the center, to the sides, high or low in the room? It is in the center, but we want it to be more to the sides and maybe a bit higher in the frequency spectrum to give space to the chords and lead. All I'll do now is look through splice and loops in my sample packs, and the ones I think may fit, I'll throw them into my project and test it in context with the whole track. Sounds pretty good. I do not like that one. This one's good. Sounds horrible. So I really like these three the most. So what I'll do is add these two here and this one here. Listen to how much to the sides these are compared to our first hi-hat. Massive difference. Now finally, let's fix this absolute disaster of the lead. As you can hear, it's trying to live in the same space as the chords, which is really bad. What we could do is move this lead up one octave and the 3D space would be kind of fixed, but I also don't think the sound fit the synthwave vibe and genre of music we're going for. So what I'll do is search on Splice exactly what we're looking for, something synthwave-ish and a lead. And I'll just go through a ton of these leads and save the ones I like the most. And then we test these leads in context with the whole track. And when we cycle through sounds like this with the whole mix, and when we hit the right one, you'll hear it fall into the track like a puzzle piece. Does not fit. This one sounds great. Not fit again. This one sounds great. So eventually I found these two leads and I moved one of them up one octave to make it fit better in our room. Now compare it to the old lead. Obviously the new lead fits the style better and it sits higher on top of the chords. And now it's genuinely sounding professional, like this is major label quality. But there's still one thing I think we can improve further, the kick. The drum loops sound great, it's just that the kick is missing some sub bass. Because when the bass and sub bass is ducking in volume due to the sidechain, the kick takes the low end by itself. So because it doesn't have a lot of sub bass, it sounds a bit empty in the low end when the kick hits. So let's just add a quick small boost here. And that's it. We took this track from sounding amateur to sounding professional in just a few minutes. So here's the final before and after. Into pieces. Like I said before, this training is part of what I teach in my 7-day music producer course, where you learn everything you need to produce electronic music in just 7 days. Music theory, sound design, mixing, mastering, tons of production techniques, etc. packed into a course that you can learn in just 1 week. Link in the description.